Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey. I'm joined today, and as always, by my longtime co-host, my business partner, my friend, Mr. Neil Patrick Harris. That's his middle name. First and last names, Jason Johnston Neal.
That's it. In the house. Hello.
Lucy.
Thank you for having me.
How was your Thanksgiving, Jason?
So here's the thing. You know when people say, so what are you going to do for Thanksgiving? And you say, oh, well, family's coming in here, and we're going to go there, and we're going to make this, and we're going to do that. And I always say to those people, but what if you did nothing? And so this year, what we did in our house was nothing.
Right.
But the thing that I do tell the kids is ever since his passing, Thanksgiving Day in our house is John Prine Day. And so I just play John Prine albums all day long.
Okay.
Just that simple. And so having John Prine fill the house on Thanksgiving when you don't have to be anywhere and nobody's coming over and you can just read or make another cup of tea or pour a dram. It was splendid. Absolutely splendid. I think I'd said in the last episode, and I think you were echoing, so much travel going on for the job that just being at home, not having to be anywhere on any given day was spectacular. And did you do nothing or did you do something?
Well, I did some things. It was actually an interesting Thanksgiving because, A, my dad flew out from New Mexico to come be with us. And my mom was there, of course. So my mom and my dad, even though they're divorced, they get along famously. And then, of course...
How long divorced are they?
Oh, jeepers creepers. So we're talking BET, which is before ET, the extraterrestrial. So that would have been 1981 they got divorced. It's right. It's been 43 years now.
So mostly water under the bridge.
Mostly water under the bridge, yes. So, of course, and then my father-in-law came, but this was an interesting wrinkle. So Delma, as you know, has been in sort of a serious relationship with a boy, and he came over for Thanksgiving, and his mom and soon-to-be stepdad came over as well. So we had sort of a meeting of the families here.
You had me at soon-to-be stepdad, where I was like, okay, so you've got divorce in your family, so his parents are about to separate, but they're coming for Thanksgiving? That's not how any of this works.
No, like he's soon to have a stepdad.
That's what I mean. That's not how any of this works. Stepdads are coming into the family. They're not leaving the family.
Yeah, exactly. So we did that. We didn't play any John Prine, but we always play Alice's Restaurant by Arlo Guthrie.
Always.
Right? You've got to play that at least once. And then, finally, you've got to play Wizard of Oz. So we had a little bit of Wizard of Oz going on that day. Yeah, Wizard of Oz is a Thanksgiving classic here.
I would go so far as to say One Nation Under Whiskey is the only entity in the universe right now not sponsored by Wicked.
Well, I meant to tell you, Jason, starting with the next episode.
We have a new sponsor to announce.
Listen, you know what I think about every Thanksgiving? It was the day in 2010 that you and I agreed to have a call and talk about the birth of Single Cast Nation and what that could be. Right?
That's it. Yeah. This year was 14 years since that conversation. Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
We were 36-year-old young men, Jason.
With our futures ahead of us.
Oh, my gosh. Look where we are now.
No money, but a dream.
If you will, it is no dream.
I'm not going to say what we have now, but here we are.
So listen, if you remember last episode, we had a number of emails that we highlighted where you, Jason...
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed that.
You would put the challenge out there. What distilleries would you like us to highlight, to bottle whiskey from? And we got 4 or 5 emails into that episode, and a couple of those people that we highlighted emailed us separately, and I wanted to bring in one of those emails in particular to highlight here in the intro before we get to our conversation with Matt and Mike, the Blaum brothers. And then I wanted to tell our listeners here, we're eschewing news today because we have a special feature that is going to come after our conversation with the Blaum brothers, and I don't want to say what it is. I want people to go into this blindly, Jason.
Okay. Well, let's before we get to this email, you can queue up that email if you wish. Yeah. We will say, this episode drops on December 11. Our shipper will be shipping e-com in our Single Cask Nation bottles in the US throughout the festive season, with no guaranteed delivery dates attached. So get your orders in ASAP, get the bottles moving ASAP. We all know, for everyone around the globe, we know what shipping season looks like when we get closer to the big December 25. So things get a bit crazy. Get your bottles ordered. Please head over to singlecasknation.com, see what we've got on there. Also, for people in retail in the US and for retail around the globe, support your local retailers as well.
Yes,
see who has Single Cask Nation, see what Single Cask Nation you can bring in from them for your festivities as well. And may everybody have a festive Festivus and a Happy New Year.
So the email I want to highlight is from Matt Skinny Roberts.
Mr. Don't tell me, Bladnock in the last episode?
Well done, you. Well remembered.
I remember us having Ben Romack, Bladnock, and Glenord as kind of the outliers.
So
I was thinking back. Yeah. I don't remember anybody mentioning Jura. Is this hello? Hello? Is this thing on?
Oh yeah, it's on. Yep. I know, it's strange, right? Do you remember that juror that we had at the Bon Accord?
Leave
it there.
So Matt Skinny Roberts' email.
So the subject for this email is entitled Wayback Machine Callback.
Oh boy, does he quote us, and have we not followed through on promises? And oh boy,
no,
it's positive.
You're gonna like this. You're gonna like the way you look, just like at Men's Warehouse, which is not a sponsor of ours. That we leave all of our sponsorship to the good folks at the movie Wicked, coming to you this holiday season. So he says, well, let's jump into the Wayback Machine to just after the Westland Live podcast recording.
Which one?
Right? Because that was, I want to say it was the one that he was a part of.
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
So the Wayback Machine and not just the Wayback Machine.
Okay, so he makes a noise. When you go into the Wayback Machine, it goes bing. So now we've gone way back. And it says, now that we've arrived, you may remember me inquiring about vacuum distillation and if you knew if any spirits produce any... what's that?
I do remember this. Okay. I do.
If we knew of any spirits producers using it. The answer was no, plus some other words, but Joshua said them, so I wasn't listening. This motherfucker right here. This motherfucker. This
guy's the best. Matt Skinny Roberts. You're the best.
He says, okay, let's go back to present time. Bing. Okay, we're back in present time. And he says, enter Oath Gin. Made with oats and vacuum distilled with apple peels. Valtteri Bottas and Tiffany Cromwell, I guess, had the idea and started it. No idea how involved they actually are. Just figured this was fun and interesting to circle back to, and I'll be looking for a bottle to try. Cheers. So
I don't recognize gin.
What I love about this is Matt has nothing to do with this gin. He just happened to hear what they're doing, how they're producing. He says, I remember having this conversation. And he's just like giving us a little bit of info there. Listen, I'm with you. I shouldn't say I'm not interested in gin. You know, back in my Impex days when I was looking after the Herb Garden gin line, that elderflower gin was just remarkable, and I made fantastic cocktails out of it. What I want to know is what this vacuum distillation does to potentially some of the texture going on in that spirit.
Yeah, and please, I'm clearly being facetious. I like a little gin of a day, and we interviewed Hamish from. Was it Hamish?
Yeah, Hamish. He's no longer with them. He's sold the company on. Did I not tell you that?
Well, fucking well done him.
Yeah. He sold it on to the Armstrongs, which is a mother and two daughters. Who, when we were at the Spirits Business Banquet, I ran into the daughters there, Isabel and Imogen. Yep.
Pardon me?
Isabel and Imogen.
Imogen?
Imagine that.
I was just thinking you were getting gin into her name, Imogen.
Oh my gosh. You
couldn't hear that?
Opportunity. No, I didn't hear that, but now I've heard it.
Yeah, they're gonna release an Imogen.
Amazing. Anyway, he sold it on to them. Lovely, lovely people carrying on all the good work that he had done. And
he just wild swam into the sunset.
He wild swam into the sunset like the lovely maniac he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's rocking. All right. So, yes, so all of this is to say, being facetious, gin matters to some people. And
I was drinking tea when you said that, Jason.
I know. I was watching.
Don't say anything funny. I'm about to take another sip.
Oh, well, I'll give the floor to you then. Hey, look at that face again.
All right.
Look at that face. He's so heartbroken. So, this is to say, so what is vacuum distillation?
So vacuum distillation is where you actually remove the air from inside the still. And the liquid is distilled within a vacuum. I think my understanding of it, because this is the part that Skinny tuned out on, both Oishi and Fukano distilleries in Japan have the ability to turn on and off vacuum functionality within the still, and it allows them to distill slower and at a lower temperature. Yep.
Okay. I'm just thinking of that famous photo of a Glenfarclas still,
that crushes? Yes.
Looks like a crushed soda can.
Yeah.
And what's the reason? Like, it created a vacuum. Like, so anytime I hear vacuum distillation, I automatically think, oh, that sounds dangerous. You want to destroy your still, but clearly people are doing it on purpose and having results.
This is why I never have a conversation in a vacuum. Right?
In vacuum distillation, can anyone hear you scream?
Moving on. That was actually a good joke. Actually, you can hear the entire crowd applauding for that joke, Jason.
I'm pandering to an Alien fan, so.
Oh, well done. My chest is bursting open with joy. So listen.
And now, Mike and Matt. Hey, it's Mike and Matt coming out with your open chest.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so before we hand it over to our conversation with Mike and Matt, I really want to call out to our friend Ford Ray, sweet baby Ray.
Sweet baby Ray.
who we had on the Padcast. He was our guest because of an entry into Giving Tuesday event we did in 2013. He was our guest, and he was
2013.
Did I say 2013? I meant 2023. People, okay. Do I do that again, or do I let you beat me up? Yeah,
just keep moving.
Yeah, 2023. Anyway, and he spoke at length about them and some of the single malts that him and some friends have selected, and we taste these single malts along with the Blaum brothers, which was just super, super fun and great to hear their input on those casks as we tasted.
Yeah, and I felt a little better as we went through our conversation. We first started talking to them, and they mentioned this in the interview about distilling single malt for 10 years. And I'm listening to this thinking, gosh, this hasn't been on my radar. Like, I feel terrible here. And then, as much as they've had plenty of other projects going on, they tell you they've never released a single malt. And I started to feel a little bit better there. And actually, it made me think once again to last episode with Adam Polanski of Lost Lantern writing in. And he mentioned a whole host of single malt distilleries, American single malt distilleries. And Blaum Brothers wasn't on that list. But once again, they haven't released.
They haven't released it. So how do we know?
I'm really happy to say that as part of today's interview, we also taste a couple of single malt cask samples with those chaps, and we connect those to Sweet Baby Ray as well.
That's got to be his new Podcast nickname. He's just
I have it written down in front of me. Yeah, that's Sweet Baby Ray. That's it.
Done.
Sweet Baby Ray Ford.
Well, there you go. Let's hand over our conversation to you, me, Matt, Mike, and Mark, the Distillery Cat. So Matt and Mike, thank you both for joining us. A few months back, we had our mutual friend Ford Ray on the podcast. Every year we do a Giving Tuesday charitable drive, and one of the prizes was to be a guest on the podcast, and so we brought him on, and he started talking to us about an American single malt project that you guys were working on that he helped select some barrels from, and I want to dive into that. But before we dive into that, I'd love for our listeners, and I say our listeners, but really me and really Jason, if we're being very honest, Blaum Brothers is new to us. Your history is new to us. I have had some of your whiskeys at different events and so on, but I don't know much about your story. Yeah. And so it'd be great to hear about your beginnings and your aims as you began, and maybe how that all evolved. Did you hit the aims? Did those aims evolve, and so on? So, so could you start us off there?
Yeah. First of all, forget anything Sweet Baby Ray told you, because it's probably all nonsense.
That's our name for him anyway.
Sweet Baby Ray. I love that.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Such a good guy.
Yeah, agreed.
But I guess to start, Mike and I both had very different backgrounds professionally, and I was kind of in the healthcare category. He was in the government side of things, and we both wanted to do something together for a long time. And one thing, we have a lot in common, but one thing we really had in common was the love of whiskey.
Specifically, single malt Scotch. That's really what got us into whiskey, to be honest.
Yeah, we kind of did it backwards on a lot of Americans. We cut our teeth on Scotch and single malt and stuff, and then eventually we kind of got into bourbon and rye and American whiskeys. So
you're in a safe space here, by the way. I had the same beginnings. I'm still more Scotch focused, but I do love my bourbons and ryes. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So we decided to start a distillery together, and we started filling up barrels right off the bat. So here we are now. December will be our 11-year anniversary, so we're opening up a lot of older barrels now. We just released a 9-year-old bourbon finished in red wine casks.
Okay.
And we're about to release a 10-year-old American single malt whiskey.
Sure.
But we're starting to do a lot. We do a lot of, the finishes on things, finish our whiskey in a cognac cask and finish it. And I think that really goes back to our roots of originating as, Scotch guys. Obviously in Scotland, there's so many things that are finished in, a different type of cask. So I would say that's why, we're not trying to hide a bad distillate with a a finish, but rather that's just how we like things.
And we really, obviously we've been promoting the bourbon and rye and other spirits for nearly 11 years now, but we've been making malt whiskey since day one, really. So we're sitting on some barrels that are well over 10 years old. And it's been hard not to release any of them, but we really want to do it right. And that's kind of our passion is what, part of what got us into this. Lucky enough before here, I was living in northern England for 5 years. So just about an hour and a half south of the Scottish border. So I got to spend a lot of time up there. I got to do the Springbank Whiskey School. It's an amazing experience. And now any of the, single malt that we make, we're actually bringing in the malted barley from the UK. In fact, a lot of it's floor malted, just like 45 minutes from where I used to live.
Oh, wow.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. Partly what you're saying there, Matt, 11 years in this and we're asking you for an introduction. Like, that's embarrassing to me. And the fact you're single malt producers. I sincerely apologize that we haven't come and seen you in Chicago.
I mean, we've known you guys, though. I mean, we've had your bottles for a long time, so it's okay. We're not strangers here.
Well, cheers. Yeah. I will also say, Sweet Baby Ray has been telling us for the last couple of years, you got to go see the Blaum brothers. You got to go see the Blaum brothers. So this to me is the beginning of us knowing each other much better. Sure. And that 11 years will be water or single malt whiskey under the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
I like it. Yeah.
I'm glad you call him Sweet Baby Ray rather than Sugar Ray. I get the two confused so much.
Yeah.
So back to your beginnings. I love how you talk about starting distilling single malt from day one, but you leaned in out the gate, it seems, and please correct me if I'm wrong, with your bourbons, with your ryes, and I know you do gin and rum as well. And I just wonder what the reasoning for that was. And I imagine it's multifaceted, but go ahead.
I think I know some places have been fortunate enough to produce for years and never release anything and not make money and still be okay. Even with the bourbon and rye, we started out early sourcing some MGP because we wanted to age our whiskeys. Yeah. We didn't want to release a 6-month-old whiskey, and more power to anyone who does and can do it well. But that was the big focus. I mean, it was 4 or 5 years before we had our bourbon and rye ready, and the rum's another passion project. That's another 5+ year venture. But it's been the hardest part is just looking at all the malt whiskey, and I just even this past year got a Facebook memory that came up from 10 years ago showing these 2 Oloroso butts that we filled up, and that was such a milestone. That was August of 2014. And I remember that, and that was an awesome feeling. We came all this way, and we filled these up, and now we're not going to talk about them for another decade. But it was a milestone, especially, being into Scottish whiskey so much, just being able to start on that journey.
And it's kind of funny how it happened when we sourced MGP. We had never really, that was not part of our business plan. We didn't really have any intentions of sourcing anything. We kind of just sat back and thought, vodka will keep the lights on. I mean, we're not really big vodka guys, but a lot of people drink vodka. So vodka and gin and we, have all these tools at our disposal. So we want to make a lot of cool stuff outside of the whiskey category. But really, we started this because of whiskey. But it's kind of funny. Like I said, the MGP barrels just kind of came across our laps, and then we we decided, all right, let's this is really good. The samples we tried were really, really good. So we sat on it for a while, and then we ended up calling it Old Fangled Nodder Bourbon, which Nodder, not our, and actually the KNOTTER in the bourbon, it actually had the different colors of the letters were NOTOUR in the Nodder and the bourbon. So
that's
the
fantastic.
bottle actually said, but the nice thing about that is it hit and it caught on with the whiskey community. So sourcing, and it kind of put us on the map, if you will, made us somewhat of a household name in the whiskey category. So,
nice.
Even though it wasn't our plan right off the bat, it was kind of a, I guess, like quote Bob Ross accident, and call it a happy accident.
I mean, and then of course, when that was going well, everyone's questioning, why do you stop sourcing? And it we could have kept that going, but that's not why we got into this really. So we want to focus on our own distillate.
When did you stop sourcing, Mike?
I mean, we haven't bought MGP barrels for probably 8 years.
Yeah.
8?
Yeah, anything we've had, we sat on and released.
There you go. Yeah.
We might have a few somewhere. I don't know.
I think we recently stumbled across a few MGP barrels
that we've had since they were fresh distillate. Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just very quickly, not to derail us, but obviously we're talking Scotch here. How are you finding maturation for your single malt, given where you are in Illinois?
Finding it to be, I guess, good. So we kind of have two different climates here that we're dealing with. So when we started, we were storing everything in our building here, which is climate controlled. And anything we've stored here, the proof has typically shot up quite a bit. Sure. I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, we started storing all of our barrels in a uninsulated pole barn, and it's definitely a different maturation down there. Obviously, there's a bit more humidity. It doesn't go up as much. So I won't say it changes it for better or worse, but it does change it. So
sure.
It will be interesting over time. Of course, it's, a 10 plus year experiment, but it'll be interesting over time to see the malt whiskey and other whiskeys that were fully matured in this building versus in the warehouse,
I think
absolutely.
It's been surprising. We in the warehouse, like Mike said, hot in the winter or hot in the summer, cold in the winter. We are not controlling it at all. But I think I've been surprised personally of how many whiskeys we've pulled out and tried that have been so high proof. I feel like the proof is
the high proof ones mostly out of here because of how dry it is in here. A lot of whiskeys, when we go into the barrel at 115, 117, we've had them coming out at 145 after 8 years.
Wow.
I just, a couple weeks ago, we had some bourbon friends in town and went over to the barrel barn and tried to open something up, and we ended up pulling it back and checking the proof on it. It was 151.
Yeah.
So we're getting some really high proofers.
There you go. It's like Bacardi territory there.
All right.
And just to stay on the American single malt end of it, but I want to touch on the bourbon and rye. Do you have different kits for your single malt compared to your bourbon and rye? Are you doing it all in the same kit? And if so, how are you changing?
What do you mean by kit?
Sorry,
just protocol and how to make it.
No. Sorry, yeah, kit is the Scottish
what
word
I'm wearing.
For your fermentation tanks, your stills, right? Your condensers and so
equipment,
on.
I think is the word.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Distilling kit.
Distilling kit. Yeah.
So I mean, we use the same equipment, but we use it differently. So we have a hybrid still. So when we're making bourbon and rye, it goes from a pot to a column. When we're doing malt whiskey, we're using, a Pinnacle yeast, and we're fermenting maybe 5 days and then double pot distilling.
Oh, okay.
So as traditional as we can.
Nice.
And just to get even geekier, are you targeting a cloudy or a clear wort before you distill? Like, what is the target flavor that you're looking for?
Well, I guess one of the other things to note, just because we don't have the equipment to actually lauter, is, we do distill grain on. That would be
grain on. Okay.
That would be one of the biggest differences. If we had a lauter ton, then maybe we would do it that way. But so far, it seems to be working out.
Okay.
11 years in is what I've always said.
But we're going. We're definitely, with a lot of things we do, like the rum and the bourbon, we'll go for flavor and quality over quantity. I mean, early on we experimented with some different yeasts that were maybe a little more high output, maybe less esters, and then even the strains of malted barley. Started out choosing a few that's like, oh, okay, I know Balveni's using this one. That one's interesting. And then it kind of got to where we just worked our way back historically and found things like Golden Promise to be a lot more flavorful of a grain than, like your more modern Optic or Concerto. Because it's a passion project, we're only going to release malt whiskey like once a year. We just wanted to go with what we like. So we like heavier flavor stuff, There's a time and a place for the simple stuff, but we like character. So
I love hearing that. One of the conversations I always have with producers like yourselves is there always seems so much room for experimentation, and you can throw different grain and you can throw different yeast and you can throw different fermentation times. I like hearing you kind of play around with that and then be driven by what do we want to drink at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Where along the way were there compromises between that tastes really great but yield is so low we could never sell it? Like, did the economics meet
malt
flavor conversation?
No, not with malt. I mean, we figured, again, seeing as it's a limited product and it's our passion product, I mean, we'll end up pricing it whatever's appropriate with how we made it. So no, we didn't want to compromise on anything like that at all.
Wonderful.
That's one thing we've always tried to really, when we came into this, they're teach their own, but there are a lot of, distillery owners and distillers that have very much, very different business models. But we came into this from a very pure and honest place of loving good whiskey. So that was right off the bat. I mean, it wasn't even something we had to shake hands and agree on. It was just an unspoken thing of we're not going to compromise on anything. We're going to make the best product we can. And if it doesn't sell, we'll drink it,
Yeah.
Making the best product we can sounds like a transition, if I may be so bold.
It's going to be really awkward if you don't like it.
I know we've got the MGP label here. I know we've got that sample.
Yes.
The MGP, all that's specifying is that was an MGP barrel that we put the distillate into.
Great to know.
Yeah.
Great to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So which one would you recommend?
Why don't you start with the MGP one, the one that says MGP,
okay,
and then I'll stop
the MGP
the non-MGP one that says MGP.
Yes. Wait a second. I've been busy remembering Matt with a hat, and now you've thrown a whole lot of MGP at me. Like, so say that again.
Okay, so barrel 42, basically. So,
start off with barrel 42. I'm going to pour both, and I'm just going to keep barrel 42 to my left, and then barrel 150322 on my right, just because I don't like following rules. There you go.
So when Ford and when Sweet Baby Ray and some of his friends came out, some of our friends, we spent 2 days and put 10 different barrels in front of them. But we did it blind. That's how we always prefer that people do it blind, so they're not, skewed by the type of barrel or the age or the proof or any of that. But they ended up wanting 2 different barrels, which are quite a bit different that you'll see.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, one of them. Ooh. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of them smells of sherry.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Like there's a good bit of sherry in there. Okay.
And the funniest part, Matt mentioned about how we get into doing finishes and all that. The only whiskey product we've never done a finish with, and I don't know if we will, is malt whiskey. Everything we've done so far is full maturation in 1 barrel. So.
Okay.
So
nice.
The one you're smelling that's like cherry, that's 9 years old out of an Oloroso, but.
Oh, okay.
This one here?
No, that one
no.
is
The other
8 years old out of ex-bourbon.
Yeah.
Okay. This one, to me, went straight to, like, heavy mezcal notes. Like, there was a lot of vegetation in there, but also a lot of heft to it.
That's very similar to the tasting notes they were giving when we were trying it,
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes good sense.
That captured my attention right away. And I have not put my nose into the second sample. I was already captivated by this first one. And 42, right? It's the answer to everything.
That's right. That's right.
I caught some.
You have to select.
I caught some movie references on your website when you talk about your rye. There are many like it, but this one is ours. I use that line from Full Metal Jacket all the time, just mostly about my bases, specifically that one. There are many like it.
We have a lot of movie references around the distillery and a lot of pop culture stuff. We're just old nerd movie and whiskey nerds.
Man, we really need to get to this distillery. We have totally slept on something incredibly valuable here.
Well, and Jason, you keep on saying Chicago. They're not near Chicago. They're almost in the Wisconsin border.
We're about 3 hours straight west of Chicago. We're about 20 minutes from Iowa and about 15 minutes from Wisconsin.
Dubuque, Iowa is
to be honest, as a Scottish chap, right, you always go for the big city, and then with a global listenership, right, Illinois maybe doesn't say as much as Chicago. All respect in the world for being 3 hours away. I appreciate it. I'm 2 hours from D.C. I never tell people I'm in D.C., but I do tell them I'm near it.
Where do you live, Jason?
As a point of reference. I'm in the Shenandoah Valley.
Okay.
So I'm in Bridgewater, Virginia. I've got Harrisonburg, I've got Charlottesville, Roanoke's farther, Richmond's farther. But originally an Ayrshire boy, and so when you mention Campbelltown's the peninsula we see across the water from Ayr. So,
well, if you ever come visit, I raise Scottish Highland cows, so you'd feel right at home.
Oh, beautiful!
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
There you go.
That's wonderful, wonderful creatures. I love both of these, and I'm right there with you, Joshua. The 322 has got that. Like little bit of the opening pickled onion funk, which I love and I use with love in my heart. But yeah, the sherry is a giveaway on 322.
And funk is one of the like characteristics we're always happy to go for. That it's just good. And that's across multiple spirit types. I mean, we love like funky high ester rum, and that's one of the things about like Springbank whiskey. It's kind of got that like barnyard funk to it, and like those are all
absolutely, Mike.
We adore.
Yeah. So, and that was going to be one of my questions as I'm nosing this. Like Jason's note was spot on with that sort of vegetal qualities, kind of almost mezcal-y smelling, and I'm getting it a bit, even outside of the sherry cask. I'm getting some of that vegetal quality, that just subtle undertones of that. And I'm curious how you're achieving that. What you're doing to target that specific spirit flavor profile.
I mean, if we had decades to answer that would be easier. I mean, it's not. I can't sit here and say like we definitely knew it was going to come out this way 10 years ago. I'll just say. With our distillation style, we definitely take heavier cuts. So we go for I guess these are the words I use, a dirtier distillate because we're going for a much longer maturation. I think that and a combination of the yeast strains that we choose, which are definitely lower yield but high ester, and they can create some really unique flavors, especially after that much time.
Basically what you're saying is
just magic.
We're trying to promote the most science we can in those barrels.
I tell you what I love about it. There's a note in here, not on the nose, but on the palate, that reminded me of younger Mortlach. And what you said,
no, Mortlach's got great funk to it. I love it.
Right, and
absolutely,
and that's it. And you know, that kind of ages out a little bit as it gets older. I shouldn't say ages out. It just kind of evolves. And what you were saying before, you know, lines up perfectly to how I think about Mortlach and how that evolves. And, you know, they're going for deeper into the tails or into the feints to get the heavier compounds that then evolve into these beautiful things the more and more it ages. That's very cool.
Thank you. Are you getting we don't have the samples you have in front of us. What are you getting today out of that one with as far as like the peat content?
So I was going to ask you, on the nose, I couldn't tell where those scents were coming from, and I wasn't going to say that it was. I didn't want to ask if it was peated and then sound stupid for you to say, "Oh, that's not peated at all. What are you talking about?" But then I am getting this. I'm not getting smoke at all. It's all earthy. It's all vegetal, charred green tubers. Like it's very vegetal.
So that would be a dickhead move of me to set you up and say, how much peat are you getting out of it? And I'm like, gotcha, there is none. No, it's I do recall from this barrel though, it is 100% Baird's heavily peated malt, but we've done other barrels that are heavily peated that are just like 10 times more dirty and medicinal and funky and peated. Yeah. This one, for some reason, it really tamed itself over time. And the peat kind of took on a new characteristic, and I think that's where a lot of that interesting, like medicinal funkiness is coming from. You know, but it makes me like
there's always a point, and Josh and I have gone through a fair number of samples in 2024. There's a moment with Highland peat where I get fresh hospital bandages. And whether it's a cask note or whether it's a barley note, the hospital bandages present themselves. This, 42 cask, I don't get any of the hospital bandages. The fact that my nose went straight to the mezcal quality was delivering that smoky element for me. So this is doing something unexpected from a heavily peated Highland malt. Yeah. I'm digging it, I tell you. I'm digging it.
There's a point as the palate sort of transitions to the finish that it gets like strawberries in the distance. There's a delicate sort of light fruity note going on there as well. And again, just using Scotch whiskey as sort of the signpost here. Before I use Mortlach this time around, I'm going to use Craigellachie. When Craigellachie sort of gets out of its, awkward, tweens, it starts getting this sort of strawberries and cream kind of note. And I'm starting to get that. I'm just getting the edges of some fruitiness coming through, which is really nice.
I always have a soft spot in my heart for Craigellachie. We've stayed at a house there that's like literally right next door to the distillery. And my buddy who's from Tennessee had so much trouble, pronouncing it. You call it Craigellachie.
Is it the house up the stairs just across the street?
No, it's a place that used to be. I mean, this was 15 years ago. It was just up the stairs from the Highlander Inn.
Yeah. That we might be talking the same street, even if we're not talking the same house. Yeah. We have traversed those stairs after a few drams at the Highlander as well.
Stumbled up those stairs.
It's a good railing. You can also pull yourself up on it. The comment I was going to make is I'm actually keeping the whole experience quite mezcal-like. As it transitions from palate to finish and then goes out the back door for me, it's got a crisp vegetal smoke that still keeps me in the mezcal sandbox, and I continue to love that element of it. I am curious, and this is a part that Josh and I discuss, sitting with this in glass, letting it bloom, giving it 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. I'm really curious about the evolution that undertakes. I'm really intrigued to sit with this, and I'm going to enjoy this quietly of a night by myself, just seeing the places this goes. I'm really happy. I'm such a mezcal guy. I'm really digging it. And then curious, where does the barley re-enter this conversation? Does chocolate come with that? Is it milk chocolate or dark chocolate? Really curious to check that out. Sure. So thank you for this.
Oh, cheers.
Well picked by those chaps.
Yep.
Sweet baby Ray.
Sweet baby Ray.
Oh.
I'm gonna move over, if it's okay, to the sherry cask one. And I don't see a BHP on this little label, so is this going to be then unpeated malt, or is it going to be a surprise and there's a test at the end?
No, there's no test. From what I recall, it's that one was both regular optic malt, and then half of it was peated, not heavily peated. So there should just be I think Matt and I both agree when it comes to sherried whiskeys, even though the first scotch you and I first single malt we ever had was Macallan 12 probably. And there's a time and a place for a clean, sherried malt, but we both really like, sometimes you get into that real kind of like dirty and ashy tasting, sherried malt to where it just adds a little more undertone and character to it. And
sure,
that's, I think with this one, that's kind of what we tried to do, is just add a little kiss of peat into it and see where that goes over the years. So it should be very subtle.
Joshua will attest to the fact that I have never given this note, but on the nose, I'm getting roasted artichoke.
Oh, I thought you were going to say asparagus.
I thought it was.
Yeah, I pulled it back. That was a miss. Okay. That was a misstep. Roasted artichoke.
Oh, I like that. Sorry, I'm going to pepper you with some more technical questions here because you brought up Springbank in your time at the Springbank school. One of the things that I always found interesting at Springbank is in their fermentation, right? In their washbacks, their ferment gets to around 5.5%, and it really doesn't go above that, where most distilleries are 8%, 9%, 10% in their fermentation. And I've often wondered if there's a connection to fermentation tied to that farmyardy kind of Springbank funk that is just so Springbanky. And so I'm curious, what your fermentation looks like before distillation.
No, it's a good question. I think Springbank is just run by a bunch of wizards, to be honest. Mm-hmm. It's just all magic.
You're a wizard.
Yeah. No, I don't know. That's a funny thing, too. When you go there, they're also humble, and they're just like, oh, it's just how we've done it for so long. And
exactly.
Their computer's a chalkboard on the wall and says Dell on it. And,
right.
I don't know. I think with them, a lot of it is grain choice. And, they're still, one of the few, if not the only, distillery that still floor malts 100% of their malted barley. I just would assume their selection, and that's another good reason, like the local barley line that's been coming out for years now is so amazing, is just going back to their roots and picking, again, strains that may not be as fruitful when it comes to volume, but more flavorful. I wish, in a perfect world, I wish we had great big wooden open top fermenters. We've explored that. Maybe we need a GoFundMe to get some of those for malt whiskey. But no, typically we'll our fermenters are closed top. It doesn't because we our distillation system is very German and they're very very beer focused, so closed top.
Gotcha.
I'd say, we go for the more ester producing yeast, and we'll ferment for about 5 days and then just kind of let it sit. But I'd say we get to about 8% ABV. I'm sure that has an impact on it, and that's another reason I have to give them props. I mean, it's kind of like places going into a barrel, especially when you're talking bourbon, going into a barrel at a much higher proof. You can fit more proof gallons into that barrel. That's more cost effective for the long term. Although if you go in at a much lower proof, you might, target some of the wood sugars and get maybe a better quality distillate. Who knows? Springbank, they have giant fermenters like everywhere else, but they're really only getting half of the alcohol content in each ferment. So that's
exactly.
And again, like, do they have to floor malt all their own barley? No, but after shoveling it for days, I can attest that they put in some real work there. I mean, it's like nothing is operated by robots there, unless they changed in the past 15 years. I don't know.
No, they have not. I saw you rubbing your shoulder when Springbank Distilling School got mentioned there, Mike. Is that the old monkey shoulder kicks in?
Yeah, it's like phantom pain.
Yeah, right. Oh, man.
Just two quick notes on 322. Continuing to nose it, I had oxtail soup appear on the nose for me, which takes me back to my childhood when oxtail soup was in the house. And the other part for me is the texture. We're both, Josh and I, texture guys. The nation is a nation of texture lovers. That 322 has texture for days. I love that aspect of it.
And that barrel's been a fun one to... That one's been more accessible, and it's kind of remained in the same spot for 9 years. And that's been fun to kind of... I'd say the sherry butts are the ones we've kind of paid attention to as far as trying them more often. And one of the fascinating things, which I actually like, because I didn't want it to, full maturation, or I didn't want it to be just like sherry and then a little bit of a whiskey undertone. The nice thing is, it took 7 years before it even started really taking color on. So that was a very extracted cask. Very old looking. Don't know where it came from, but it's cool because it kind of hit that curve, right? It started pulling more of the sherry out of the wood like in the last 2 years, and it really kind of rounded it out, because prior to that it just seemed a little bit out of balance. So I don't know. Moral of the story is, I think we suck at making young whiskey. It takes a while to get it to where we want it to go. Older's not better, it's different, but for us, that's just our production method. Is we're kind of committing for the long haul.
We've always said that we've always the way we distill and the way we do it is we're always we're committing for it to be in a barrel for a long time.
We can't just pull it out of the barrel and say we need to make a quick buck. Like, it's not sellable at that point,
Yeah.
Nope, that checks out.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful chime you have in your office.
Digital.
And I don't say that to be passive aggressive. That's a lovely chime.
Thank you.
We pride ourselves in our chime.
Yeah, another thing to be proud of, Matt.
Yeah.
I love what you said about the balance on this one, because that's what struck me here. You've got the sherry sweetness. You've got the delicate peat undertones that kind of delivers some of the vegetal qualities still. But from top to bottom is just really balanced from nose to palate to finish. It's telling a solid story. I liked the first one quite a lot. I love this whiskey. Like this, this is happy place whiskey for me.
Thank you.
Which one do you prefer, Jason?
Yeah, mine is that, esoteric motherfucker in number 42. Like, that is just doing different things, and I love different. 322, you can plot a course. I really like the course. I would happily drink that if a friend poured it for me. That 42 I'll be thinking about for days. I'll be wondering what happened there and what's the cask saying and what's the grain saying. Yeah, that is... Woo-wee. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for both of these.
Mm-hmm. So I've got a question for you. Jason and I started our company 13 going on 14 years ago. And we had a third partner, and he's since moved on. And we have a system in which we work, and we work very well, but we're not brothers. How does the family dynamic play into what you guys do?
Honestly, we get that question all the time. People, come to the distillery, I'll walk back behind the bar to, we've got a bar and a tasting room here. I'll walk back to fill up my water bottle or something, or to get a dram of whiskey, and somebody will say, "Hey, how'd you guys get started? How is it working with your brother?" I can never work with my brother. I can never work with my sister. Honestly, it was just the two of us growing up. We're about 2.5 years apart, so we don't have any other. We wish we had more siblings. We could use more help.
Wealthy siblings.
Yeah, wealthy siblings. Would be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've been very close since we've been younger, and honestly, people ask all the time, it's like, do you guys get into fights? And we really never squabble or fight over anything. We both kind of have our swim lanes here, but we're both very much involved in each other's swim lane. But honestly, it might sound a little cliche at this point, but we've said before that, I might start here, and Mike, hold on, let me get on the camera. I might start here, and Mike might start here, and we always have a better product because we're both coming at things. We have the same end result in mind, but we come at it from different approaches sometimes. So I honestly think, I firmly believe that a lot of, whether it's business decisions, the way we market something, or even the product, that everything's better because we're both involved in it. But we don't really fight. We get along swimmingly. Nice. Even when he was overseas and I was in the States, we were up a lot on the weekend nights playing Call of Duty on PlayStation, with our headsets nice. On. So we've always remained very close. And it works for us. I know it doesn't work for a lot of people, but it definitely works for us.
Yeah, sure.
And we're not a fake family business. Right now, my production team is my wife and my 18-year-old son when he's not in school. So, nice. I mean, we are. Nice.
My daughter's both bar back here and stuff like that. So we
are actually a family business.
On any given day, you'll find at least 3 or 4 Blaums in the building.
Wow.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, you both look well on the experience. It doesn't seem to have challenged you too much. Did you always have the grey in the front of the beard there, Matt?
No. And thank you for calling it grey. It's actually very much white, I think, at this point.
But you see who it's coming from. It's from one of the White Walkers from Game of Thrones. So
I'm sure you've seen our logo. I typically don't actually have a beard. I usually grow it in the winter.
Yes.
And,
yes.
It's I usually grow out in the winter. I started a little early this year, but every year we've done this, the white has become more and more pronounced. I also started with a lot more hair when we started.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
That's a close haircut you've got there.
But it's funny now because I'll walk through the tasting room and somebody will go, "Oh, is that you in the logo?" And I go, "Yeah, it is." They go, "Yeah, the one with the beard." I go, "No, that's my brother." People joke, say we need to redo our logo, but
you're right. Yeah. Right. I like that your beard has gone white and your hair has gone pink.
Yeah, right. It's actually kind of funny. I still have a decent amount of hair, but it was originally during COVID when I couldn't get a haircut, and it bothered me. I like to keep my hair shorter. And one night after a few solid dad pours of whiskey, I grabbed the clippers and just took it off. And my wife said, "Okay, it's round, no birthmarks. You can do it if you want." And I just never went back.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You do
Good
the
for
close
you.
crop on purpose.
Yeah.
Good for you. I've got a severely
Wow.
misshapen head, so I can't really do what you did.
Yeah,
So
Mike doesn't
that's
really
awesome.
know yet, but
No, my shape is my face is misshapen. That's why I have the beard.
It was a difficult birth all those years ago. Yeah, go on, Josh. I know
Yeah,
where you're
so
going.
just really quickly, because we want to ask you about your future and of course where you're headed and what you're excited about moving forward. But before we get there, my final question is, if I remember correctly, which I quite often don't, if I remember correctly, Sweet Baby Ray, is that his name? Sugar Ray?
Sweet Baby Ray.
Sweet baby Ray.
Sweet Baby Ray said that a number of casks were selected. Was it this two? Were there more?
They selected these two.
They
These
selected
two out
these
of
two.
10 barrels we put in front of them.
And will these be the first single malts that you'll be releasing?
Well, no. We plan on in December. We're working on our label right now, which is kind of the holdup.
Oh,
it's a big
Godspeed.
thing. It's our first. I mean, a lot of our labels. If you were looking at our product line and all the different whiskeys we put out and things, our labels all really tie together.
Sure.
But we kind of wanted this. This is our baby. This is why we did this.
Yeah.
So we
I love
want to
it. Yeah.
we want to do it right, but our intentions are to put out our 10-year-old American single malt whiskey in December, and then Sweet Baby Ray's barrels will follow on the heels of that. But
Okay.
And they knew that when they
Nice.
picked them.
and we didn't ask them like,
Gotcha.
"Hey, can you wait?" Ray Ford
Ah.
just said, we want to make sure you guys get yours out first. We know that's a big deal. We're happy to wait and get ours out after that. But to go back and answer your question, I'll let Mike chime in, where we go from here. It's really weird in the sense that our business is 10 years old. We've been doing this for a decade. And in a certain way, we're just now getting going. In a way, I mean, we're just now opening up these 9-10-year-old barrels, and this is why we did it. And this is the point we were wanting to get to. And thank God things have gone well enough that, we've been around for a decade. We've seen a lot of craft distilleries open and close within our time, in our state and other states, obviously. But we're really, in a weird way, to us, it's like we're just now getting started.
Yeah.
Yep. I hear you.
Makes good sense. Yeah, I absolutely hear that point for you. This may be a little inside baseball. I may be getting back to the economics again. We're talking about those who open doors, those who close doors. You were talking earlier about vodka. Maybe vodka keep the lights on. People drink vodka.
Right.
Now you've got 10 years to look back on. Where were those successes? What is it that kept the lights on and the doors open?
Honestly, I mean, one great thing we have going for us, and if you guys ever come visit, you will definitely love. So, give you a real quick background. The town we're in, Galena, Illinois, it's only 3,200 people. So,
Oh my gosh.
it's a very small
Smaller
town.
than Bridgewater, Virginia. By half.
However, it's a tourist town. We have a half a mile of a old historic downtown where 90% of it's on the historical register. It's like walking back in time when you go down our main street, Galena, and you can look at pictures online and see it. But we're in the driftless region of Illinois, so most of Illinois is just flat as a pancake. Where we're at, we've got bluffs and it's very hilly. So it's a really unique. We've got a golf resort with 4 golf courses. We've got a ski hill here. It's a tourist town. So when I say we have 3,200 people, we get 1.7 million tourists every year. So,
Oh my gosh.
so that's obviously been a major contributor to us keeping the lights on. We have built-in tourism, and we've been here for almost 11 years, and we've been the number one tourist attraction in Galena for the past 10 years. We actually edged out the front runner for a long time was Ulysses S. Grant's house because he lived here in Galena. So that
my friend Greg was there just 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Ulysses S. Grant was here. The house down the street. It's funny. Neither of us have been to it. It's like 2 blocks away. We still need to. We need to do the trolley tour. We need to do all these things. Yeah. But honestly, the successes, really just, the thing I love the most is that we have really stuck to our guns and done it our way.
Yeah.
And there were over the course of the past decade, there were many different ways we could have made a decision to, make $1 million overnight by putting out this product. Sure. And, you can sell 1 million bottles to 1 million people, but they're, what if they don't come back for that next bottle? So we've had a lot of opportunities to try to really cash in on things, but we've been really dead set on sticking to our guns. But, putting out, our whiskey, when's the first time we put out our own whiskey? It was 5-6 years ago. Yeah. 5-6 years ago. And prior to that, we, vodka, which both of us were like, meh, it takes forever to distill and, it's not that exciting. But we've had a lot of one-off products that we've put out and just having the support of the whiskey community in general after we, our MGP source project really hit with the market. We wish we had saved more of that because it was really good. But the secondary market has been selling those bottles for a pretty penny.
Yep, heard on that one. We talk all the time about if we just put back a 6-pack of that or 12-pack of that, we'd Anyway, not to dwell. It sounds brilliant, chaps, and I'm so pleased. Honestly, Sweet Baby Ray has raved about you chaps.
Yeah.
And to finally put faces to names and liquid to lips. This has been an absolute joy, real joy.
No, this is
Joshua's
great
coming back in on a
great talking to you guys. Like I said, we've been fans of you guys for quite some time. So it was fun to get on here and chat about whiskey.
That means a lot. Cheers. Yeah. So thank you. I've been holding on to this for 5 minutes now. I picked up Cask 42, which is the answer to all of life's questions. This has become a bag of plain M&Ms that have sat outside in the hot sun for about an hour, and you open it up and you smell that melted milk chocolate with the candy coated shell. Like that's the nose now. Oh, it's fantastic.
We don't have these in front of us, and now I'm like, why don't we? But as soon as we get off this, I'm like, I need to go revisit. It's funny. We sat down. You guys were drinking. I'm like, I picked up a couple glasses, and I said, Mike, grab that bottle over there. We'll just drink along. He goes, what is it?
There you go.
He goes, what is it? I go, I honestly don't know. Just sitting in the office.
Just a blank bottle.
Hey, it matches this one right here.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for joining us and suffering through our nerdy questions. And Galena is in the books. We need to get up there, both for your distillery and now Ulysses S. Grant. I gotta say,
we haven't been to the house, so if you guys come, we can all go visit the house together.
Let's do it together.
Let's do that together. That'll be our
4 hip flasks.
No, it's a unique town. 3,200 people, and we have 30-something restaurants. Right?
Wow.
Amazing.
We actually,
my gosh, we actually
this past March just opened a second location, a Distillery pub on Main Street, because our distillery is obviously too big to fit on Main Street, Galena, which is really where everybody's at, the heart of Galena. So we did just open up a Distillery pub in March, so that's been going, and this weekend is actually going to be a really big weekend for us because it's the Galena Halloween Parade, which is the second largest parade in Illinois behind the Chicago St. Patrick's Day Parade. So in our little town of 3,200 people on Main Street, Galena, Saturday night, we will have anywhere from 25 to 30,000 people lining the streets for the Halloween Parade. It's crazy.
Wow.
That's insane.
That's terrific. Really terrific. Thank you both so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
This was fun.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers. So while we didn't hear too much from Mark in that interview, the time with Mike and Matt was fantastic. To hear Mike talk about being at the Springbank Distilling School, to hear about their baked-in passion for single malt, historically single malt Scotch. I'm excited to taste many more things from them. See what a standard release looks like from the Blaum brothers.
Right. Yeah.
And as we said, ultimately get a chance to go visit them. I know we end a lot of our interviews over Zoom by talking about going to visit people. In season 9, we want to try and invert that and enter back into a world where we're really only interviewing in person, and Zoom would be the rare occasion for the podcast interviews.
That's the aim.
Yeah. You enjoyed that interview with them, that conversation?
I really did. They were just two guys that we could so easily get along with. I felt as if their origin story was not too far off from ours, in that, aside from us not being brothers, they were just two guys that found, whiskey as that connective tissue between the two of them and decided to trudge forward and make something of it. And it gets back to what I said at the opening of the episode, and Thanksgiving and what that conversation looked like, and us starting a company. So I like that there's some connective tissue there. I liked too and I have the sample in front of me. You fell in love, Jason, with the Baird's heavily peated malt that they used. Oh yeah, right, and it was in an XMGP cask. And I liked it. Don't get me wrong, I really liked it. It's so unusual and it's so different that I'm still wrestling with it. And I think that's a good thing. And I compare that to
that's the attraction,
right? Just really quickly, I compare that to my first entree into Springbank. Right back to we brought that name up before, where someone said, "Get some Springbank." I got a bottle of Springbank 15. This was early days in my whiskey journey, and I tried a dram, and I don't get it. I tried another dram. I don't get it. And then I tried another dram. And before I knew it, over a weekend, I was well into that bottle, and I couldn't stop doing it because I finally got it. And then I was discovering those flavors. So that's where I am with this. I want to really dig into it. And, sometimes whiskeys come to you, and sometimes you got to meet it halfway. And that's where I am with this one.
Oh, yeah. No, there's plenty of opportunity to sit down with that Baird's heavily peated. I was just now, as you were commenting, they're taking a little sip on the sherry cask again as well. There's such a richness to it, a heft to it, kind of mushroomy going on as I experience it today. I'm hesitant to use the word fecundity. Starting to have people making fun of me out and about in the world for my use of fecundity. So I'm trying to use it sparingly. However, there's a great fecundity in that sample, so suck it. Suck it, Hatton, suck it. But really interesting, right? These are not middle-of-the-road whiskies. These are stop, pay attention, look, listen, learn. I would say to Sweet Baby Ray, please keep us in mind. A bottle of the heavily peated to the side for me, bottle of the sherry to the side for Joshua. We'll happily send you the accompanying funds. We're not asking for freebies, but I would love a full bottle of that to sit and experience and share. Really, really rocking. Yeah, great to meet the guys. Ray was spot on, right? Great introduction, and a distillery well worth watching.
Yep, agreed. So I mentioned there was going to be a bit of a surprise, I was going to have our listeners go in blind, and I used that language very intentionally, because what's coming next, dear listeners, ladies and gents, is a conversation that was led by our dear friend Steve Hawley, who is the president of ASC America and someone that we talk to on the reg because we're on the same team. He's also the president of the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission. He's been on the podcast before. Everybody knows Steve Hawley. But he challenged us. So he sent us 3 blind samples, 3 blind whiskey samples. He gave no information, whiskey type, whiskey origin, cask type, age, nothing. Just 3 samples each. What did we think? And the conversation was the 3 of us together going through those whiskeys, discovering flavors.
Hi, fellas.
Hi, Steve.
Steve Hawley.
Good to be back on the podcast. So, yeah, a quick little experiment that I thought would be fun, incited by me here, I guess. So I'm going to flip the tables here and be the host for a few minutes.
Oh,
and
Lord.
You can be
Madness lies this way,
my
Steve.
subjects.
Wait a second. I didn't know that I was relinquishing power here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, demoted.
This is a hostile takeover.
You heard it, listeners. You heard it here.
Do
I'm
you boys have
because I'm in trouble?
3 drams in front of you?
Yes.
I do, and 2 of them are
You
open.
do not know the contents of those drams. Correct.
I know that there's colored liquid, 3 different shades of yellow. So either it's whiskey or you've been dehydrated on 3 different days to 3 different.
Well, let's not get into my recent history, but
Everybody loves it when they send us liquid, and Joshua always compares the color to piss. Like, people absolutely love it when that happens.
We get special requests for it. When's the next time Josh is going to compare the color liquid to piss? And them now.
Anyway, moving on from piss. Yes, I think the last time we did this was the Judgment of Westland, and you two were quite terrible about following the rules. So I'm not even going to try and impose rules on this. I'm going to go ahead and let you guess what these are.
Okay.
But I want to do it in 2 stages. First, I want to taste these whiskeys with you guys.
Okay.
And I want you to give me your impressions of the whiskeys. Following that, I will give you a couple hints, which will probably, maybe, possibly reveal what they are, and then you can guess them.
Oh, boy.
Does that sound fair?
So you are conceding that the 3 are whiskeys?
I am conceding that they're whiskeys. Hint number 1, they are whiskeys.
They are whiskeys.
3 whiskeys. From your collection?
These are from my collection, yes. And that's the only other hint that I'm going to give you. The only other caveat to this grand experiment is I gave you these samples in bottles that were numbered 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully I remember which one number 1, number 2, and number 3 actually is, because that was a month and a half ago. But I think I have it right, because I did it in alphabetical order. See, I'm a clever.
So 70s Ardbeg, 60s Bowmore, and 70s Kalila?
Kleinleash.
Oh, Kleinleash. There you go. That's better.
Just gave the game away.
Oh, shit. Okay. 3
Now it
drams.
sounds like a jest tasting.
Let's take them as one would, starting with 1. So I'm going to yield the floor to you as you guys nose and sip the number 1 whiskey.
All right. Nice, bright, fresh fruits.
It doesn't, I cheated as I often do. And I nose across all 3 just to get a quick impression. My first impression was not notes. It was not brightness. It wasn't any of that. It was, is this Scotch whiskey? And off the bat, one doesn't smell as if it were a Scotch whiskey her malt whiskey.
And I know which one.
No. I'm talking about number 1 here. Smells quite nice.
No, I
though.
just did the same as you, since you suggested you had already broken the very few rules that we had. I went through the 3 of them, and I've got a hunch which one you think doesn't smell like a Scotch.
I think it's high time
didn't.
we get some single cast nation leather jackets for all the rule breakers that we have in this company.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to stick to denim and keep away from the leather, Steve.
Okay, we could do denim.
As long as we're greasers and not socias. That's what's key.
All right.
Well, none of us smoke
Should I tell you
cigarettes,
more?
so what are we going to roll up in our T-shirt sleeve?
Candy cigarettes?
Yeah.
A Matchbox car in its box?
Any other further impressions on whiskey number 1?
It's very pleasant. It smells very much like some of the 10-year-old Clynlishis and 10-year-old Glenmurrays I've had floating
interesting.
around from Single Malts of Scotland.
Yeah, I'm not going that route. I'm smelling something spicy, earthy. Something's telling me this may be within the rye whiskey family. Just on the nose. I haven't tasted it yet, but I see you guys have.
Okay, let's get it on the palate.
Yeah, very nice texture. Really coats the walls. Yeah, it tastes much less like the Clynlishis and Glenmurrays of a moment ago on the palate.
Oh, yeah, and I'm not getting much rye spice except on the finish. You know, up front, it's kind of soft yellow fruits, maybe a little kind of thing going on there.
Which was the nose for me.
Right? Oh, okay.
And then I got less of that nose across the palate.
All right, I'm going to go in for another sip here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's not a lot of complexity to it once it's in the mouth. The finish doesn't linger. Still has a pleasing texture on the palate, though.
Texture's great. The legs on the glass, I mean, it's you could see the oils are quite present. Yeah, I agree. It's enjoyable, but it's simple. It's
Yeah, I
not
get a
doing
little
whole
bit of
heck
dark,
of things.
a little bit of dark chocolate to the back of the palate, connecting to some of that earthiness you were talking about on the nose.
Also, a little ginger or graham crackery kind of. There's a little bit of spice there. I don't know if I get the dark chocolate, but I'm getting this earthy
To the
back.
to the back of the palate. Yeah, pleasing, simple little sipper.
Yeah.
Not a lot of
Okay.
complexity.
Great. Yeah, for the listener, I'm going to abstain, although I am sharing the same drams, but I am making some head gestures while they talk.
I didn't even think to
Which
look at you, Steve. I didn't think you'd give us anything.
And I'm also going to represent our dear listeners and the nation and urge you fellows along so this doesn't turn into an hour-long tasting. So we're going to get into dram number 2. Dram number 2.
My nose is in number 2. Definitely opens up more familiarly crafty. It has the
Yes.
kind of the wood influence there. It's got a bit of the green cask effect going on.
100%. Yeah, it definitely smells of a craft whiskey. Having said that, it doesn't. I mean, there's balance on the nose, but craft whiskey just tends to evolve in a different way. Do you like the nose, Jason?
It's not necessarily the type of nose I would search out. Like you said a second ago, I don't think, and I hoped we'd left the pejorative behind years ago.
No.
in representing it as crafty and talking about that barrel effect, I wasn't necessarily saying it was a bad thing.
Oh, I'll tell you. While I didn't love the nose because it's not necessarily, the palate's doing some interesting things. I'd almost argue, like if you had told me this had a light smoking on it, I would say yes, I detect that. It could be barrel char. I can't tell which, but there seems to be something smoky going on in there.
What do you think about the alcohol strength on it?
Feels low. Feels pretty low, right?
That's what I was thinking. It seemed a little thin in the mouth. We spent so much time talking about the texture on number 1. This seems much less so on sample number 2 here. Checking the legs and the glass, nowhere near the same representation as sample number 1. I know you said we went in alphabetical order here, Steve. Does that mean we're dealing with 3 examples from 3 different distilleries?
I will not tell you that. You can't strip all the fun out of this for me.
I will say this as well, Joshua. When you were talking about the ginger component on the palate of number 1,
correct,
I've really got ginger in my mind for number 2 here. It's almost like a ginger, crystallized ginger in a dark chocolate, maybe even a milk chocolate. In chocolate, let's stick to that.
I've got more Marianne on here than I have ginger.
There we go. Classic American.
As long as it's not Gilligan. You don't want that.
Hey, little buddy.
Man, I feel like I'm on an island over here.
Oh, we should make this tasting a 3-hour tasting.
Jason, tip of the cap to you on that one, Jason.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I will say this. Sample number 2 is growing on me as I sit with it. The question we always ask in our own cast selections, would I reach for this? Not necessarily.
I just don't think it's doing a whole heck of a lot. The palate is pleasing. It's much better than the nose, in my opinion. It just seems kind of unidimensional. There's a bit of pepper in the back on the finish, which is pleasing.
Needs more oomph.
It needs more oomph.
Okay, well, to Jason's point about with more time it's growing on him, I think that after we finish the initial tasting, I'll give you some hints, and then you guys can start your guessing game, and you can come back to them. You can come back to each one of them. So let's move on to number 3.
These are all
along at a nice pace.
Whiskeys. Are these all whiskeys?
I'm not going to tell you.
They cannot be.
Okay,
Not the
into
texture,
number 3.
not lacking oomph. Come on.
I'll tell you, the nose on number 3 is quite nice. Oh my gosh, what does that smell? It's almost like an amaretto kind of smell, like boozy almonds going on there.
I get a little bit industrial, a little bit of that window putty.
You get that happens to you quite a bit. When I get almond, you get that window putty note.
Yeah, the nose on number 1 remains in the lead for me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just a reminder to our listener that I did not ask these guys to rank them, but they're doing it anyway.
It's a throwback to the Judgment of Westland. We did exactly the same thing as the Judgment of Westland. No. Same as when I did the barrel boot camp at VDC. I couldn't help but think with a single cask mindset. These could be lovely little blended products that you're putting in front of us. I'm thinking of them as 3 single casks.
So, really, I haven't tasted number 3 yet, but after you mentioned that you liked the nose on number 1 more than these other 2, I went back to number 1. And once I went back to number 1, the nose, it changed. Now it smells and less rye-like by comparison.
Yeah. Welcome. Yeah. Welcome. It's good to have you here.
All right. I tell you, I really like the nose on number 3. I think it's fun. Here we go.
The texture seems to occupy the middle ground between the very textured sample number 1 and the much less textured sample number 2.
I don't know
Joshua.
what this whiskey is doing.
The look on Joshua's face, dear listener, was quite telling.
Well, firstly, it tastes as if it's a lower ABV, but the like, I don't know if you've ever done this as a kid, but I remember going to the airport as a kid, and you know those lines where they sort of make you zigzag, really slowly through those, zigzag lines. I remember as a kid going to the airport, and one of those was just there, but there was no people. So I decided to run the entire zigzag. And that's what these flavors are doing all over the place, like fireworks. And I'm having a tough time getting a bead on anything.
Yeah, this tastes like it's on its way somewhere, but it's not there yet. Just to continue your airport analogy, Joshua.
It may
A little
not be
thin in
there
the
yet,
mouth
but
as well.
fuck if it isn't fun.
Curious
I feel
about
as
that
if
one.
I've had these. I feel I'm tasting something, and I don't know what it is.
A little bit of licorice on number 3 on the palate.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
I have no scoob what any of these 3 are. I'm not even sure I know what category these are.
I'm not even sure I know what nay scoob means.
No idea. No idea. No Scooby-Doo, no clue.
No
It's
Scooby-Doo
Glasgow rhyming.
Thank you for the translation.
You're welcome. Glasgow's loving this. Yeah, I find myself gravitating right back to number 1, but continue on number 3.
Yeah, trying not to rank, trying to guess. 3 has a familiarity to it. There's a flavor in there that I've tasted in another whiskey before. No idea what it is. Number 2, insert regional small distillery here. I just don't know. Number 1. Are we going back? What are we doing? What are the rules now?
Here's
Steve?
what I'd like to do.
Yeah, I'm back number 1.
Here's what I'd like to do. The first thing I will say is that I got the order right. So
Okay, good.
Oh, good job.
I'm happy to know I didn't mess this whole thing up. So I got the order right for numbers 1, number 2, and 3.
Okay.
Let's start with the hints. This popped into my mind on a walk listening to the cool sounds of One Nation Under Whiskey one day. And you guys mentioned this. You mentioned that you haven't had these. So I said, let's get these to the boys.
Oh, interesting.
Is one of these a single malt, American single malt put out by a gigantic producer?
I will tell you that they were all American single malts coming from me from the shelf behind me that you're looking at.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But was one... Because we clearly talked about... We took a question from a listener, name escapes me, where we talked about encountering, was it the Jack Daniels American single malt while traveling through an airport? We're back to the analogy again. And they were like, is that good or bad for the category? And we kind of both sidesed it and left judgment open because we'd never actually tasted it. Is one of these a Jack Daniels American single malt?
The one thing that always impress about Jason and Joshua is your capacity to retain the content of episodes from year to year, month to month. So, Jason, you are spot on. These are 3 American single malt whiskeys that you have never had that you are saying, I would love to try that.
Yeah.
because I can't really speak to it right now. Well, you've now tried them. You can try and tell me which one is which, if you can even summon the three that we might be dealing with here.
Can I ask a question that I have is there's American single malt, and then there's an older TTB entry of just single malt, which simply meant at least 51% malted barley, and then it could be anything else, and it has to be new charred oak. Are all of these under what the new, hopefully soon to be approved malt category is? Are they within that?
Good question.
They are, yes. I will correct you on one thing. The other type of whiskey that exists in regulation now is simply called malt whiskey. It does not carry the word single with it.
Malt.
Okay? Malt whiskey means 51% or greater of malted barley and new charred oak.
Okay.
So I will tell you, number one, I don't have my glasses on. Number one is at 45% ABV.
Get out of town. Get out of
Expecting
town.
higher than that.
Although when you shake it, there's no bubbles to it. It just seems young, but the texture on the glass was spectacular.
Number two, 47%.
Get out of town.
Wow. Yeah.
Get
I
out of
think lower than
town.
that.
Number
No.
three, I don't even have to squint, 45%.
Jeepers.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, all three are single malts.
Okay.
Jason, one of these three is the distillery you were thinking of that is available only in travel retail.
Okay. Without leading the person who's taking charge too much, is number two that distillery?
It is not.
God damn. That was the one I was happy to reject.
I have a guess that number three is the Jack Daniels. There's something reminiscent.
You are correct, sir.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Jack Daniels, American single malt, 45%. It is aged in new handcrafted charred white oak barrels and finished in the finest Oloroso sherry casks.
All right.
It has a flavor that reminds me of Jack Daniels. So there you go. Like of the Bonded.
Yeah.
Remember how great that was?
I didn't want to say it in the moment, but number three reminded or made me think of watered down wild turkey.
I don't know what to think about that statement, Jason.
I'll give you another hint. Number one, Joshua, I thought it was quite interesting that you commented on the spices and thought maybe it was a rye. Does that give you any further indication of what this might be? Well known for their rye.
Oh, is this MGP single malt?
It is not.
Shit.
Jim Beam single malt.
Is Jim Beam known
not.
for the rye?
They're in my house.
This distillery is known for its rye and its bourbons.
That doesn't narrow
It
it down
is.
too much.
American single malt whiskey. It also says Frontier whiskey on the label. Does that help?
Oh. Is this a High West single malt?
It is not.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
This is the latest entry of the three into the category.
Okay. It's my favorite of the three, not that we were asked to rank them.
Interesting.
I just want to commit to this before you give me a name that I want to
Okay.
dismiss.
I'm about to hold the bottle up.
All right.
Hold on. Does this distillery have bottlings under someone else's names? In other words, their
No,
brands.
historically, actually, the opposite.
Fuck. Okay.
All
There
right.
you go.
Here we go,
We
gentlemen.
clearly have no idea.
This is Bullet, American single malt whiskey.
Jason.
Well,
you're
that's
gonna have
good. We
to
can't
take
use
that.
any of this, so
use
perfect.
any
Let's
of it.
scratch this. Let's just go back to what we were just doing.
And this is
Okay.
their own distillate?
This is not their own distillery.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
Plan to be their own in the future. Now, number two,
making this for them.
Number 2 is the only one left. You should be able to get it. It was interesting that you guys kept going towards craft whiskey and small distillery. This is the largest distillery in the group.
Then the wood is done all wrong.
Oh, I'll tell you though, going back to this again, I'm not loving it. Going back to this, it has an incense-like smell. Like in the 90s, I used to go to Hare Krishna temples, and it was like that incensey kind of sandalwoody thing coming through. So this must be the Jim Beam.
It is indeed. They call it Claremont Steep.
Claremont Steep.
American single malt whiskey. 47%, if I can see this properly, and I think I can.
Did they talk about the casks on this?
The casks are New American Oak casks.
1 gallon casks.
I can't speak to the size of the casks.
We heard they were good size.
That was a subtle put down. Wow. Yeah,
so, gentlemen,
Yes.
the three American single malts from the big players that have entered the category over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Now, I don't remember the listener who wrote in, but I do remember his or her question, which was, is this a good thing or a bad thing for the category?
And it clearly depends which one you encounter. I think number 2 is showing too much oak, and I wouldn't be excited about American single malt if that was my one and only introduction to it. Whoever Bullet is sourcing their American single malt from knows what they're doing, and I think is nice balance of spirit and oak on that. Texture, can't take it back. Texture was phenomenal, incredibly well done.
Yep.
So,
agreed.
I'd be excited if I encountered the Bullet sourced material.
Well, to be clear, and this comes down to semantics, but the difference between sourcing whiskey and contracting at another facility are two different things in my mind, right?
Okay.
And this is certainly, I would say, the latter, where they're using somebody else's facility to do a recipe and a design that they're after.
Yeah, it works for me.
So again, semantics really, but it depends on how you want to look at it.
Yeah, no, always happy to talk contract distillation. And then for me, wrapping up on the Jim Beam, that number 3.
Jack Daniels.
The Jack Daniels, number 3. That was neither here nor there for me. I would, if I tasted it, my mind would remain open on the category without necessarily enjoying my first foray into it. Joshua?
I think number 1 is a perfectly fine little whiskey. However, it's not doing enough interesting. Like if the idea to bring people into American single malt is to bring lovers of single malt Scotch whiskey into the category, I'd be a bit disappointed because it's just not doing a lot of things, and you know, I don't know the cost of the bottles, but it's pleasant, but I think I might be upset. Number 2, I don't agree any favors whatsoever, and you know, I like Michael Jackson, the beer and whiskey writer, not the singer, always said, you know, you can always say nice things, right? There's always something nice to be said. I think there's some interesting notes here. I think that there's balance here. There's no doubt about it. But if people have an aversion to a crafty whiskey, and this is their, entree into American single malt, I think it would turn them off to the category, because I don't think that this is much like the big players who are doing American single malt that I think are really leading the charge. With whiskey number 3, this is super fun. I think if there's a hardcore Jack Daniel's drinker, they will be really happy with the single malt that they got because it fits within the Jack Daniel's wheelhouse. If they're not drinkers, I think, let me take another sip here. I don't know that they would. I think that they would like it, but it so far from what, at least our experiences in American single malt, that I just don't know that it's necessarily representative of the category on a whole. Now, having said that, ever growing category, and maybe you can never hit that target, but this seems more bourbon-like or American whiskey-like, less of single.
I think you're bringing up, Joshua, a very interesting follow-up question. I'm admittedly sitting in front of a screen speaking to 2 turbo whiskey geeks, right? That have a lot of experience with whiskey, that come from a single malt direction to begin with. Mm-hmm. And I think that the question of, are the big boys that are entering the single malt category in America doing it a service or not, maybe depending on who you are and who exactly is starting with the category. Mm-hmm. If it's you guys that are starting with some context of whiskey generally, and certainly single malt broadly, not even to speak of the American single malts that you've had and that you love. Mm-hmm. If you're coming from, I'm only a bourbon drinker, or if you're coming from somebody that's new to whiskey, and these bigger names are where you might start, is that a good thing? Well, it's another way to look at it.
Yeah, the thing for me, and even revisiting the bullet sample number 1 here, to Joshua's point about, is it for the Scotch drinker, I still get this really fruity, bright nose on it. Does the palate languish behind the nose? Yes, it does. But overall, I think there's something bright to be said there. I think when you get to the Jack Daniel's, I think if you're trying to bring a bourbon drinker into American single malt, there's definitely something there. I just keep coming back to the fact that I think the Jim Beam misses the mark.
It misses the mark, yeah.
I think the Jim Beam is the one that, regardless of whether you're coming from Scotch or you're coming from bourbon and rye, I don't think the Jim Beam delivers in the middle for those drinkers.
As someone who's become a bit of a Jack Daniel's fan, first since I tried the Frank Sinatra bottling, and then, earlier this year, maybe it was last year, I don't remember the specific time, but we tasted the Jack Daniel's. That was, it must have been last year, right? It was the Whiskey Advocate,
when it won the
year, right?
Yeah, when it came, when it came to the Whiskey Advocate list, probably a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, I've become a fan of those 2 bottlings, and I got just the regular bottling. I think their spirit is great. It's solid, and I'd even go so far as to say I'm going to seek out a bottle of this. I just think it's a lot of fun, and I'd like to share this with people. I like the Jack Daniel's one.
Well, you'll be going through Heathrow, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Travel retail only.
It is travel retail, global travel retail only. In fact, I'm not sure. Maybe an airport like JFK, but I think it's more prevalent, which is interesting. An interesting strategy for them to enter the category. It's certainly more prevalent outside the States than it is at airports here. So. But I see it. I see it quite a bit when I travel.
Especially,
and certainly Heathrow. Yeah. Heathrow has a big display.
Well, thank you, Steve Hawley. Appreciate the share, the knowledge.
Well,
Yeah, this
it's
is
my
great.
my pleasure, guys. And I thought this was fun and certainly insightful. So, you know, and tying up loose knots and connecting dots amongst episodes, I think, is always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. Cheers. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Cheers,
This
guys.
is great.
That was a lot of fun, and Steve Hawley as president of the ASMWC was so cagey about what two guys with no skin in the game may have to say about those samples. But I think we were our usual selves. I think we were honest. I don't think we were necessarily rude or insensitive. I am left curious about the Bullet single malt and kind of what the goals were there and how they ended up with this very bright, fruity, Scotch-like nose to it. The palate was a different experience, but the nose was very Scotch-like. You clearly liked the access point on the Jack Daniels.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And returning to it after that recording was quite nice.
Yeah, and I think the idea for them bringing in bourbon and rye drinkers to American Single Malt is an interesting avenue, and I think something that we pulled from the cask presence on that whiskey.
Yeah.
And then, the Jim Beam left me wanting. I need more from that. Back to the question that we'd received, would it be good or bad for the category if you had a less than desirable example? You leave it in the hands of the consumer. I'm hoping there are enough people talking about American single malt whiskey that they see it coming from one of the big producers and they say, yeah, I wouldn't mind trying that out, right? I wouldn't mind seeing an example from somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, a great exercise. I had a ton of fun.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed. And it'll be interesting to watch the Jim Beam one go along and see how that, if they let it get to be a different age or different casking or what have you. It's.
Yep.
I think, whether it's the Jim Beam one or the other two, whether it's any distillery, whiskey's always a work in progress, right? And you're always looking to improve or looking to add flavor or depth. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that turns into.
What a fun American single malt whiskey episode, though.
Right.
We've got, independent producers up in Galena in Illinois, and then we've got three major players entering the category as well. Like that's the fact we can fill an episode with American single malt whiskey. That to me is a good thing.
Right. Agreed.
Sponsored by Wicked.
Well, thank you. Our next guest is going to be Elphaba, the Green Witch from Wicked, and Glinda will be joining her a little later.
They're going to be so surprised when they find out that they sponsored this episode.
I've looked at my bank account. They're going to be really surprised the amount of money they put into our bank account. That, Jason, brings our episode to a close.
Hold that thought. We have just put together an episode dedicated to American single malt whiskey. We've had the Blaum brothers, we've had Bullet, we've had Jim Beam, we've had Jack Daniels. You and I, sir, are sitting on a sample, not literally, of Westland Gariana 9th edition. And this seems like the perfect moment to pour it and discuss it. What say you?
I say that I was literally sitting on my sample. Listen, any opportunity to taste Westland with you, I will jump at. And the fact that it's a Garyana, I think back to last year when we were part of the Garyana 8 launch. And here we have some Garyana 9.
That Garyana 8, which went on to be Whiskey Advocates number 3.
Yep.
Whiskey of 2023. An amazing achievement and well worth celebrating. I'll also say Garyana 9 was released at Westland Distillery the same day I was pouring at Glasgow's Whiskey Festival with Jess and Chris, a.k.a. Swede Scott.
Yes.
And you were indisposed back at the hotel.
Yes, I was suffering the COVID.
Yeah, I was texting with Anna, as was Jess, about the launch at the distillery. They had a queue outside. They had people queuing for an hour to come in and get their hands on Gary 9. So well done on that achievement as well.
Oh, wow.
The colour is this beautiful, warm gold, rich amber kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. The nose on this is just remarkable. I mean, it's for those of you that have not had Westland's Garyana or, anything matured in Garyana wood, which, Westland weren't the only ones to use it, but they're the ones who use it with regularity. And so for those of you that haven't had Garyana, it always imparts this sort of sweet barbecue sauce note going on. Mm-hmm. And that is here for sure. It seems a little dialed back on the nose, but it's so well integrated.
Well, and that's what I was pulling up here to see if we had any cask information.
All right. Okay.
Oh, listen to this. Edition 9 highlights the tension between lighter elements on the palate, like pale malt and Oloroso sherry casks, in contrast to the darker profile of the Gary Oak casks. The result is a deliciously complex whiskey that is distinctly American. That's exactly what I was getting as well, was that lighter.
Yeah.
Like some of the early Garyanas were pretty pronounced on the Oregon Oak there.
Some previous editions had a bit more Gary presence. It was just a little heavier with the Gary presence than it is compared to this.
Like more pronounced, maybe.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! A
like
family of deer just ran across my front yard, Jason. Live on air.
What color are they? Jess is loving this.
Oh dear.
Hey, at least they weren't on your roof.
I'll cut the branches. They won't be able to get down.
So absolutely agreed on the lighter nose, a more delicate Gary presence. I like what we're seeing on the website about Oloroso casks happening here.
Yeah.
As well as pale malt, which we've discussed on the podcast before. Oh, have you tasted it yet?
Not yet. I'm still just really... I'm living a life on this nose here, man. It's got such great presence to it. It's 50% alcohol, so it's not stabbing my nose. It's just really easy to just stay with it. Yeah, but are you on your second sip already?
I am.
Oh, look at you.
I am. Mm-hmm. With that nose and turning it in the glass, I was really focused on the potential texture of it. It's like melted toffee, warm caramel is the texture of it. And then there's this deeper, heavier sweetness to it. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
And then I'm left poking my taste buds around. Where's the cask? Where's the Gary Oak? Where's the Oregon Oak? Where is it? What's it doing? Where's the char? And it's right around the edges. It's framing the sweeter toffee and caramel notes right in the middle there.
I love your caramel and toffee notes. Like for me, this was a liquid version of a Granny Smith apple dipped in caramel and covered with salted almonds, right? This is just a county fair caramel apple. The Oloroso comes through with this nice sort of rounded sweetness. The Gary Oak is really, it's not taking a back seat, but I think, in previous editions, including the last one, which I fully agree with Whiskey Advocates award that they gave it, definitely deserved that number 3 spot in the top 20. But those previous editions had more Gary presence, and here everything just seems fully married together. Just everything's in its right place. Nothing is overtaken. It is just so well balanced.
Yeah, I think the Gariana Oak has a complementary presence to the spirit, to the Oloroso casks. And listen, if you're going to do 9 editions, and this is the 9th annual release,
Amazing.
You have to show a different side. You have to explore what you're doing. I also remember a previous conversation, and please don't quote me on this, but I thought they were even into using second fill Gary Oak now as well.
I remember that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so there are opportunities there to show a different side of the oak. What I'm finding is to the back of the palate and into the finish, I'm getting the presence of the char. I'm getting a toasted quality, a toasted oak quality, and it's bringing a little bit of pepper, but it's also bringing a little bit of like roasted coffee bean.
Right, and I think that's where my palate was picking up that sort of toasted and salted almonds on the on that caramel apple. Yeah,
it evolves as you return to the nose as well.
Does it? Yeah, the sherry component is nice. There's just a little bit of sweet earthiness coming through from that sherry cask treatment on there, right?
This is incredible. When did we last taste 6 whiskeys on an episode of One Nation Under Whiskey? And by which I mean you and me, since in the last episode I tasted 6 total on wax with the VDC crew. But you and I don't get to sit around doing this.
Yeah, not to this length. We do whiskey here, we do whiskey there, but yeah, being able to taste through 6 whiskeys on one episode is very nice. Oh man, right? This is why I love Westland so much. They push boundaries. It's clear they know how to make whiskey. I think anybody who's looking for a foot in the door in American single malt, you really can't go wrong with Westland. I know that we didn't, right? I think Westland was likely some of our first entrees into American single malt.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, here we go. I've got the specifications here. I've got a minimum maturation time is 60 months, so 5 years. ABV, as we said, is 50% alcohol. The grain bill is Washington Select Pale Malt, Munich Extra Special Malt, Pale Chocolate Malt, and Brown Malt. The cask types are Virgin, Quercus Gariana, First Fill X Bourbon, and First Fill X Oloroso Butt. Oh, wow. The yeast strain is the usual Belgian brewer's yeast, and fermentation time is 96 to 144 hours. Do you want to hear Westland's tasting notes? They're very short.
Yeah, please.
On the nose, burnt marshmallow, biscuit, mocha, almond cream.
Agreed. Yeah.
And the palate is ground clove, cinnamon stick, peppermint tea, and bread pudding. And let me just say here,
go ahead.
You and I taste hundreds and hundreds of whiskies together, and I don't often get mint in a whiskey. I was getting mint on the palate here. And I was going to say it out loud, and we got distracted with other things.
Yep.
And now I wish I'd got it on wax sooner. But I got a minty quality on the palate of this whiskey.
I'm so glad you decided to read those notes, because there was a note in there that I couldn't get. And as soon as you read it, it reminded me. So my youngest daughter, Mimi, is a bit fickle. There's a lot of things she doesn't like, but when she finds things that she likes, she has to have it. And so she was feeling sick 2-3 months ago or so, and I said, look, let me brew you some peppermint tea, put a little honey in it, it'll settle your stomach, and it'll help with your sore throat. And I made myself a cup as well, and she fell in love with it. And that's what I'm getting. It's the peppermint tea with honey, like ample honey going on.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah. That's a cracking whiskey.
Yep.
That's very, very, very tasty.
Yep.
As I was looking around their website, they still have a few bottles of the Gary 7 and the Gary 8.
What?
So if you were looking for the Gary 8, that was third best whiskey of 23, according to people who taste whiskey all the time, that's there. I also recommend getting the Gary 9 as well.
Oh, man.
That's excellent.
I'm definitely going to get it. I think that I may have purchased a bottle of every single Garyana since its release. And one of these days, maybe when the 10 comes out, we could do like a 10 vertical with the Westland team. Ooh, let's see if they're up to that. That could be fun. Live on air production.
Well, thanks to Anna and the Westland team for making sure that we got a sample of the Gary 9. That was wonderful to taste. They released it November 9. We've got it in our December 11 episode. Comes highly recommended. Then we've got the other single malts we've tasted in today's episode as well. What an absolute wonderful episode celebrating American single malt whiskey. And since you were kind enough to indulge me, Joshua, I will hand the close of today's episode back to you.
You are so very kind, Jason. I would like to begin my list of thank yous. I'd like to thank my agent. I'd like to thank my mom and my dad. And
don't forget to thank Wicked.
I'd like to thank our friends at Wicked and the entire production company that's been able to bring it to the silver screen.
We recognize every single one of the craftsmen and women who have made that happen.
Oh my gosh.
To Ariana Grande, there's a seat always open. Come join us.
I think her real name is Garyana Grande. But, here we are.
It's her One Nation Under Whiskey nom de plume.
There you go. So thanks to Garyana Grande. And no, seriously.
Seriously.
Thanks to Gary.
To be clear, our lawyers want you to know that all was a joke. All a joke, just to be clear.
Huge thanks to Matt, to Mike, for sitting down and talking about their distillery with us, taking us through their whiskeys. Of course, to Sweet Baby Ray for the introduction. And to Steve, challenging us on some American single malts. It's nice to be challenged now and again, and that was a good deal of fun. So thanks to Steve. Jason, as always, thanks to you.
Oh, and thanks to Skinny for his email.
Thanks to Skinny for his email. And, of course, to the listeners. Thanks, as always, for checking in with us every other week. Jason, there's one more thanks that I need to give. I don't think that this thank you list is ever going to end. We want to thank...
The Oscars have already started playing the music to get you off stage. So.
There's one of those hooks about to come get me. Huge thanks to Anna Hins for getting us the sample. Huge thanks to the entire Westland team for always supporting what we've done and being a collaborator with us on the number of casks we've bottled from them.
They did a remarkable job bringing Wicked to the silver screen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We don't have that movie without the team at Westland.
Right? There would be no Garyana Grande if it weren't for the team at Westland.
All right. Until December 25th, year in review episode.
Amazing. We've got so much to talk about. I cannot wait.
Gosh. Paging Jessica Rabbit Guillermo Lomas.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers! Clang, clang, clang goes the trolley.